And then he had a radical breakthrough. He had an insight, which is this. In the second clinic, it was a teaching hospital. So doctors would in the morning work with cadavers. Okay, they would show students how to dissect cadavers. And then in the afternoon, they'd go and deliver babies. And Semmelweis, he didn't know why, because at this time, germs were not a thing. People didn't know about the existence of germs. He didn't know why, but he theorized that there could be a connection. So he created a protocol. He basically had everyone wash their hands using a formula of water, chlorine, and lime. And we still use it today, exactly the same formula today. And so he tried this protocol, and it was a miracle because after people started to wash their hands, no one died in childbirth anymore. And Semmelweis, being a rigorous scientist, he collected all this data, conducted a lot of experiments to prove this had to be true, that washing your hands could save lives. And then he presented his findings to the staff, the doctors of Vienna General Hospital, believing that they would praise him and then promote this all throughout Europe in order to save as many lives as possible. Instead, the doctors told him they had to keep this quiet. They'll promote Semmelweis, they respect him, and he did amazing work, but if word came out that this was true, then people would know that they were responsible for the deaths of these women before, and their reputation would be in tatters. And then Semmelweis, of course, responded by, yes, I understand that, but if we don't publish our findings, if we don't let the world know about this, more women are going to die in childbirth. And they fought for a long time, years and years. And then eventually, Semmelweis, he was blacklisted. He was not allowed to work ever in a hospital again. And then ultimately, he was confined to an insane asylum where he was killed by the guards. And he died, leaving a young family. And so that's what happens to you when you defy powerful people in Vienna in the 19th century. And Freud didn't want the same fate. Okay? And he also had a young family. So this story is horrible, but if you don't believe me, you can go on Wikipedia, okay? He was institutionalized in an insane asylum by his colleagues, and in the asylum, he was beaten by the guards. He died 14 days later, all right? So this is the fate that will happen to you in Vienna if you defy powerful people. So now we have an explanation for why Freud made the transition, why he changed his story. But now there's another problem, which is, how does Freud convince his patients to go along, right? Before he told his patients, I believe you, and they trusted him, and now he's changing his story. So how can he convince them that they, in fact, do suffer from sexual fantasies? And like this experience of sexual abuse, it's all just made up in the head. Okay, that's a very hard job to do. So the solution is the interpretation of dreams. All right? So Freud pioneered a new way of hypnotizing his patients. So together they would analyze their dreams, right? Because if you talk about their memories in their past, they're going to fight back and says, I remember very clearly. If you talk about their dreams, that allows you to suggest subtly new ideas and new memories, to basically implant new memories and basically gaslight that person. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, so the interpretation of dreams. So that is the story of Freud. Okay? But this leaves a question is, why did this spread throughout the world? All right? And that's something that we will look at in part 3. So a lot of the influence of Freud has to do with Carl Jung, who will take his ideas of the unconscious and systemize it for popular consumption. Okay? So we already discussed his framework where we are all dualities. Okay? We have an ego, but we also have a shadow. We have a conscious, but also a unconscious, a personal as well as collective, an animus and an anima. Jung popularized ideas of personality types, right? Introvert, extrovert, which is what we still use today. All right. The main influence is in Modernism, a transformative art movement beginning around the early 20th century. All right. So, arguably, the first great modern artist is James Joyce, who in 1922 published Ulysses. James Joyce was Irish. He was an Irish expatriate, and he actually studied Dante in university. So he wrote Ulysses as a way to imitate and almost surpass Dante. And of course, Ulysses refers to Homer's Odyssey. Now, we're going to read a passage from Ulysses to understand the power it's writing. Okay? In immutable modality of the visible, at least that, if no more, thought through my eyes. Signatures of all things I'm here to read, see spawn and see rack the nearing tide that rusty boot. Stark green, blue silver rust, colored signs, limits of the Danfan, but he adds, in bodies. Okay,